And thank you so much for agreeing to come on as a guest to share the wealth of knowledge that you have as a mama of 4 kids and as an outdoor adventurer, an avid outdoor adventurer yourself, and an educator. You lead youth programs for the Mountaineers. You volunteer with Adventure Mamas. But I know I'm not going to do justice, but why don't you tell us about yourself before we get started with the conversation today?
Awesome. Thank you so much for asking me to join in today. It's an honor to be here. So yeah, I'm a mom of 4. They range in age from 5 to 20. So I've been through lots of different stages by now, experienced lots of different things. Yeah, so like you said, I volunteer with Adventure Mamas, which is a nonprofit geared at maternal wellness and using adventure and outdoor activities as that form of like self-care and wellness. And then I also volunteer and work for the Mountaineers organization. So I'm pretty involved with their basic climbing committee and courses. And then, like you said, I lead youth activities. So I work with kids as young as 2 all the way up to teenagers, just getting them outside on all different kinds of adventures and activities. So
that is,
and then, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying in my free time, I like to climb and get out in the mountains as much as possible. So.
And do you do rock climbing, mountain climbing? What is your favorite outdoor activity? What are all the different outdoor activities that you do?
I will pretty much try anything that gets me outside. Over the last couple seasons, I've gotten into skiing, which as a 40-year-old is kind of scary. I was like, oh, I'm going to pick this up kind of like other things. And nope, I get to the top of that hill and like fear dives in and I'm like, oh, if I get hurt, then I can't take care of the kids and who's going to cook dinner and all these other things start to come into play. Like mom can't get hurt, right? But climbing is my favorite, especially rock climbing. But I do a lot of alpine and mountaineering also.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I'm not a skier either, and I can totally relate with what you mean by trying to get into skiing after 40. So I totally get it. I've tried it once, and again, I couldn't get myself to. I would get on the top of a hill. I haven't learned how to stop myself. I always go face flat. So, yeah, I did a lesson and for like a few hours and I was so sore. I need to gather all the courage to go back and do it again.
Yes.
But I will at some point once we're past COVID and once things get better. And just because the timing, this would have been a good year to get started. I pick up a new sport every few years. And skiing has been on the cards for a long time. But with COVID and trying to keep a nascent travel startup alive during COVID has been keeping me more than busy. So we'll get to it at some point. So yeah, thank you so much. And it's awesome that you have experience of working with kids ranging from like 2 years and right since, you had your own babies and you work with kids from 2 to teenagers with Mountaineers. So that's fantastic. In terms of what Adventure Tripper is, who I am, for the benefit of our audience, I am Preeti Suri. I'm the founder of Adventure Tripper. We are a mission-driven company. We're on a mission to make the outdoors accessible to everyone. And we do that by providing outdoor experiences which are affordable and yet high quality, and with a focus on beginners, people of color, women, because we believe that outdoors should be inclusive and for everyone. And we enable beginners and everyone to get outside by also running these educational sessions because that helps us stay true to our mission of making the outdoors accessible to everyone. So that's who we are, and that's a little bit about me. But with that, why don't we straight jump into the exciting topic? And I'm a mama to a 4-year-old, and I started hiking and climbing when I stopped nursing my son when he turned 1 year old. And I've been hiking not climbing with him, but been hiking with him since he was 1 year old. So yeah, would love to hear your thoughts, ideas, suggestions on how do we get kids outside. That's a topic for today. And in the context of the spring break coming up, the summer coming up, plus in the context of COVID, there's lots of people taking to outdoors for the first time now for the lack of other means of recreation, but it's great for everyone. Why don't we just start with what are the benefits of taking kids outside? Why should we even make an effort to get kids involved in outdoor activities? Would love to hear your thoughts on that to get this discussion started. RyAnn?
Yeah. So one of the biggest reasons that I made getting my kids outside from an early age is just getting their bodies like moving. I'm a really big fan of what they call risky play. And that's basically where they can kind of test their boundaries and use their bodies in ways that we might not usually encourage them to. Very often on rainy days, my couch becomes a fort and a trampoline and all those types of things. So when we go outside, they have even more area to do that. And it helps them to develop because they learn like cause and effect really well. They learn the spatial area of their body and how to use things appropriately. So that became a big part, just kind of any sort of outdoor play, especially when I started homeschooling my older kids. That was, a key part that I wanted to add in too. So, and then I think giving them the freedom to explore the world around them is super important instead of like checking off all these boxes that we so often expect our kids to be able to do. This just gives them freedom to be who they are.
Absolutely. And so much self-confidence as well, right? Mm-hmm. They're doing something like this. I have seen in my own son, the confidence he's, that is oozing from him once finished like his whole entire 1 mile, even if it's like one flat mile, the sense of accomplishment that they have. Yeah. And it takes a bit of positive reinforcement from the parents as well, but that is huge. And their motor skills development, muscles, body balance, coordination, like you were talking about, and also sunshine, vitamin D, right? It's great for their immune system. And I think another big advantage for me is it helps me tire him out.
Yes.
He sleeps well.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah.
That's a big thing. Yeah. And I think also that time that we get to spend with them away from like all the other pressures, they hear no and don't do that. And, all those things a lot less, I think, when we're outside, and it's more like one-on-one time or family time. I have a lot of, especially with my older kids, like those are times when we have like our deepest conversations because we're just like hiking on a trail together or, and then the questions that come up when we're outside, like my 5-year-old is always asking questions about why this and what's that. And then their imagination. I don't think we've gone on a hike where like the roots of a tree don't remind him of like dinosaur claws. And so then we're looking for all the dinosaurs and
yeah, absolutely. And I think that is super important that you mentioned that the time to bond, because you are not distracted, most of the times not distracted with devices. You have one-to-one attention with the kid. And I think that is just precious, being able to bond with your kids on the trails or in the outdoors. So I think thank you for bringing that up. I think that's super important. Yeah, I think with that, there are just so many, I think we can talk like the whole day about the benefits of getting kids outside, not just for them, even for us. Because once we burn their energy, there's just so much energy in kids. They also are in like a good mood and they don't feel antsy. Because with COVID, I've seen initially when we were in a lockdown, we couldn't get outside and the kids got so I could notice my son getting so irritable until we started getting outside for whether, even if it was just run around the block, right? It just made such a difference. So yeah, absolutely. I think with that, why don't you share with us, how do you go about picking out an activity or even a destination for an outdoor adventure with your kids? How do you go about doing that? What resources do you use? What considerations play into that decision-making process?
Yeah. When my older kids were younger, we had a book. It's put out by the Mountaineers. it's been so loved. Like I couldn't even show it to you now because it's a mess. But it's hiking with children, and you can get it basically any bookstore or REI. You can probably find it on Amazon too. But I bought that book, and we would sit together and pick out our next hike together. Obviously things with waterfalls or lakes, cool bridges were always at the top of their list of things to do. So I found by getting your kids involved in the picking of things is really important in what I choose to do. And then just like as far as length, like with my 5-year-old, he's probably hiking like 7 to 8 miles a day now with me. But that started with just like going to like our local park and doing the 1 mile loop, and then somewhere, you know, a little bit farther, and increasing that mileage every single time. I think other things I do to help get them like to want to come out and excited is I have them help pack their own backpacks. We like let them pick out their own backpack and their own special water bottle, and then they get to pick what goes in that for the day. I do have to remind them though, whatever they put in it, they have to carry. Mom is not going to take that.
Yes, no, a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, because if anybody in the audience, if your kids are new to the outdoors, it's best to start near home, or just with like shorter, flat mileage trails, which are going to be easier, which will allow them to come back feeling satisfied and not feeling like, this is not something they ever want to do again. So you want to start slow with something that they will enjoy and will easily do, and then gradually take it a notch up every time. So yeah, that definitely is an important consideration in terms of where in their outdoor recreation journey the kids are. Are they new to it? Are they more advanced? And because it's so important to make sure they are having a good experience, and so many factors go into that. We have a question in terms of Hiking with Kids book. Do you know the author?
I don't know the author, but I do know that it's published by the Mountaineers, so I can put that in.
Sure. And we can also look it up. And Tiziana, apologies again if I'm not pronouncing your name right, but we will get you the name and the author of the book after the session. But as RyAnn mentioned here in the comments, as well as published by the Mountaineers. So yeah, thanks for that, RyAnn. What we also do is we look at the Washington Trails Association website, the WTA.org, and there you can look up hikes and filter them for kid friendly, right? And they're generally not the ones with I think that the trails are not so uneven, or they are not too steep, perhaps, so they're more kid friendly. I also try to look for trails which don't have big drop-offs. It's so much harder, especially if you're younger kids, because my kid is 4, so that he's still developing that sense of risk. So yeah, they just want to run down sometimes, and I think that's another reason why I use WTA and the kid-friendly filter to make sure.
And I think you can even filter more like stroller friendly, or
so the paved trails or accessible trails, that's a great point if you have really young kids. And I used to carry my kid in a backpack when he was a baby till he was like 35 pounds, but it takes a while to build that stamina. Again, I couldn't do more than 1 flat mile without going out of breath when I just started hiking with him when he was a baby in a pack. But if you want to get started, just starting with the stroller and looking for those paved and accessible trails is how you will filter it. And you will find the trails which are paved where you can just take them in a stroller. And yeah, starting them early is always a great way to get them introduced. So I guess my son doesn't know any other way. So, so yeah, that was great. Another point you mentioned was getting them involved in the process of picking the destination. And I also really liked you mentioning water bodies, waterfalls, lakes. Always a hit with kids. It's always something to look forward to. I always tell my son that there's going to be a lake at the end where you can throw pebbles, and that is enough to get him excited. And water bodies always work great with with kids. So I think that's a great point as well. So yeah, that's how we'll go about identifying. Great tips in terms of identifying the trail and what considerations go into it. How do you plan? And you started talking about it in terms of how do you pack, you get the kids to pack, but what all considerations come into account when you have to pack for a single day or even a multi-day outing with the kids, or time you're spending, whether it's camping, backpacking, what all do you, maybe let's start with a single day first, a day out on the trails or in the outdoors, and then we'll tackle how do you pack for kids when you're doing a multi-day outing as well. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay. Yeah, a single day, I essentially stick to the 10 essentials. I have a list of the 10 essentials, although now I kind of know them and I keep a lot of them in like a little baggie by the door. The nice thing, like the kids REI packs actually inside have a checklist of things that kids should bring with them, which I think is a great idea. So for single days, of course, it's going to be weather dependent, but I always, actually year round, always have a rain jacket in our packs, because that can be used for rain or wind or sun protection if we really need to, that type of thing. So, and we live in Washington, it does rain all year here, unfortunately, right? But,
yes, absolutely.
But that's how we get so much beautiful green stuff to explore. So, and then I always have them carry their own water and explain to them, like, this is your water for the day. They can always have more water. But that way, some kids, at least I like when I go out with the other groups, like if you give them their water bottle and let them carry it, they're just drinking it and it's done in like the first 30 minutes. Yes. And then they have to pee and then they have no more water. And then it's like a thing. So this is your water for the whole day. Take sips, make sure. I always pack their snacks, making sure that it's their favorite snacks, what they're really into at the moment. And that also, when we talk more about like multi-day, yeah, just making sure that it's what they like. I never try new foods on a hike or a camping trip when we're out there. So, and then, yeah, so mostly it's just the 10 essentials. And if I follow that list, then I'll get everything that I need in there, because it's food and water and a jacket and sun protection, and that's what I make sure that I have. So, and 10 essentials is super easy. You can just Google 10 essentials and you'll get a myriad of lists.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for people in our audience, if they're not familiar with what the 10 essentials are, we do have, a blog on our website where you can look up what the 10 essentials are, and help me if I'm forgetting any of these, RyAnn. But these are essentially, you have to have a first aid kit on you, and even more important, when you should always have it, but when you are with kids, even more, because they like to climb a rock, climb over a fallen tree trunk. So yeah, you absolutely need first aid on you. Sun protection, super critical, whether it's sunscreen, hats, sunglasses, headlamps with extra batteries. If you have all the 4 seasons like we do in the Pacific Northwest, sometimes it just gets so dark and you're caught out, because you never know with kids, sometimes they want to take longer breaks, they want to explore, they want to stop every few minutes. It just takes much longer than it would for adults to complete a certain trail, or it might even take much faster. They might run through the trail, but always be prepared with headlamp, extra batteries. There's navigation, whether it's a compass and a map, and if you know how to use it. Else, there are GPS devices, there are apps like Gaia out there, which you can use for navigation. Make sure you have that. A knife and fire shelter, just emergency shelter, and you can get like really tiny bivvies and or an emergency blanket, some extra food, extra water, and extra clothes. So those are the 10 essentials. Make sure you always have them, regardless of whether you're with kids or not. And I hope I sort of covered them, but there is a blog on our website. People can check it out on the 10 essentials for hiking. And there is also, rain jackets, I would say layers, right? Because it's so important to keep them comfortable, because they will run and they'll get so hot so fast. And it's so critical to keep them comfortable and have all the layers with you, because if they're not comfortable, they're just going to crib and not want to do it. And so you got to remove all those barriers. Anything that is a discomfort, it's best to kind of take care of that and plan for that, so that you can get through the whole hike or whatever outing you have planned, whether it's biking or whatever. So favorite snacks, yes, I use it sometimes as a bribe as well, to if after a while he's like tired or bored and doesn't want to do it, I take gummies. So like you said, favorite, he doesn't get gummies otherwise, or M&Ms, and I'm like, the next trail sign you will earn, or the next switchback you will earn a gummy. And that gets them excited. So sometimes that works as a bribe as well. So great points. How about for multi-day, RyAnn? Would you pack anything differently additionally for multi-day outings?
And do you mean like more like backpacking?
I think, and I know this is a little broad, but it can be backpacking, camping, but a lot of people just do car camping. Yeah. Or even if you're just doing a longer drive and staying in a cabin, see, the kind of trips run is mostly cabin trips, but in the wilderness. Yeah. So even if you're staying in cabin, or if you have long drives, so just trying to cover all bases here. So just generally multi-day outings, how do you plan and how do you pack for them?
So one of the things that I do for any of that type of thing is pack an extra pair of clothes in the car. And this is actually for a day hike, car camping, driving out to a cabin. Something that that they love, that they're comfortable in. So like a favorite pair of sweats and sweatshirt or a t-shirt. So that kind of like at the end of the day, after all of these activities, they can get back to the car and put on something that's comfy to them, and that they're prepared to spend some time in. This is really important. Like if you're going like on a long drive, sometimes I've driven like 3 hours to a trailhead, and then they get back to the car and they're hot and sweaty and tired and cranky. So a fresh set of clothes and, their favorite music or something in the car is really helpful. So for car camping, and like if I'm going to go out and say we're going to stay at a cabin for the night, I have created a packing list, which I just cheated and got off REI.com. REI has fantastic lists for all kinds of things. So I just printed out their list and I tape it to the top of a big Rubbermaid box. And that's what I pack all the stuff in. So, so for like, I have one for like clothes and like soft goods, stuff like that. And then I have a kitchen box, and that has the kitchen checklist on it, so that I can take those to kind of different adventures that we're going to, and I can check it off as I put it in the box. And then I know that I haven't forgotten anything. Backpacking. It took me a while to get there and remember, like figure that one out.
That's a great tip. Just have a checklist and put it outside those Rubbermaid boxes. So you always by default look through the checklist wherever you're going.
Definitely. And I also, that same box, I'll put all our backpacks in after they're packed for a day hike, and put that in the trunk. So when we get there, I can just hand them out. Like, there's yours, they're packed, they're ready to go.
Perfect. Yeah. So. You are very, very organized. I must say. And thanks for those tips. Yeah. And fresh clothes. Absolutely. I also always keep like a pair of backup clothes, because as much as I will ask him not to jump in a puddle, but that's a part of the fun. He will jump in the puddle. He will try to enter the lake. So we always have, or whatever you tell them not to do, don't go into the water, don't get your clothes wet. And guess what? Oh, Mom, I just fell down.
And I started doing that because after hiking with my big kids, we used to go with another family every Monday. We'd go on a hike, and it was generally to some alpine lake somewhere. And so it was like how they'd all jump in the lake, and the competition was who's the longest to last in this freezing cold alpine lake, right?
Oh my gosh.
But they didn't bring clothes with them or anything back. So I was like, okay, now I have to make sure we have towels and dry clothes at the car, because you guys are crazy.
Towels is a big one. Our first few trips, I almost always forgot towels, and we were using the extra clothes or jackets to dry. Right. So yes, towel, at least like a smaller napkin, and yes, so important. And
right,
because we always find water and water bodies, and that's what they love. So yeah, great points. What we also do is for the longer drives, again, because we have a younger kid and he still doesn't use devices, so we take books and books about the destination, or even if it's just pictures, keeps him busy for a little bit. And we typically buy like one new toy, and not a new toy every time. It's like a $3-4, just a painting book or something like that. Just use water to paint. So yeah, any activity, little activity which has a novelty factor, just keeps him busy through the trips. So yeah, that's another thing that really works for us in terms of keeping him engaged on a longer drive or a trip. And for food, we always try to keep him involved in the decision making. So we're going on this trip, what would you like to eat? And there's always mac and cheese. So we pack those boxes of Annie's, or always there to kind of serve that up. We also have one of his favorite ramens. We always have it on us, so it's easy. So yeah, we're always thinking about food and activity and toys. Yes, of course, there's making sure clothes and layers, and yes, spare clothes and all of that. But yeah, those are the kind of things we generally think about. Which are some of your favorite destinations, some of your favorite hikes to do with kids here, RyAnn, in and around Seattle in Washington?
Some of my favorite hikes. Oh gosh, we've done so many of them.
I know that's a hard
I start
one.
To like.
That's a tough question.
I think our favorite hike that we do every year is Natchez Peak Loop up by Mount Rainier. I like to do it in different seasons. And so we've kind of seen it in all the different seasons that you can see it. And it's just a pretty one. It's right around 3 miles with not a lot of elevation. And there's really good spots to stop along the way. Like there's a little, we call it a lake, but it's more like a big pond. But I don't think we've ever not stopped there and like left with some sort of wet piece of clothing. So, and then some of my other favorite hikes, my husband used to be a national park ranger up in the North Cascades. So we were pretty lucky to spend some summers up there while he was working. We just went and played. So I love Thunder Knob is a really fun one. I think it's maybe 2 miles out and back. It has a little hill to climb, but the view at the top is so worth it.
That in our North Cascades itinerary, because we have a lot of families and young families who go on our trips. So Thunder Knob is always a part of our North Cascades trip.
Yep. And then we generally just go across the street and the campground that's across the street from Thunder Knob. I can't remember the name of the trail there, but it's a pretty trail that goes across to another bridge, and then we kind of come back. So
got it. Yeah, I don't know which one that is, but yeah, Thunder Knob definitely. Also the ones in North Cascades, I think it's the Blue Lake and the Lake Ann, which is on the Heather Maple Pass. You don't have to do the whole Heather Maple Pass if your kids are younger, but you can go to Lake Ann, which is like 2 to 3 miles, and Blue Lake is about a similar distance as well.
And Blue Lake is a beautiful hike. Beautiful.
And it works great with younger kids as well, because it's short and easy and high ROI in terms of the views and the beauty. But one thing I've noticed is, and what motivates us in terms of the views or the beauty or the sunrise or the sunset, at least for the younger kids, I don't know about the older kids, and correct me if I'm wrong, in case of older kids, they don't care, the younger kids, about the view and the beauty. It doesn't matter to them. What matters to you? For them, I think if it's a lake at the end, or if there's something interesting on the trail, like for instance, I'm just back from like a 12-day long scouting trip across California, and we were in Yosemite, and we had 2 snowshoeing hikes to pick. And since we were scouting for our trips, and it's mostly families, so we had the Glacier Vista Point, which is like gorgeous views of the Yosemite Valley. We had that option, or there was another one, the name is slipping me now, but it's a short 2 to 3 mile one. You get on top of a hill, the views are good, not as great, but there is remnants of an old crashed helicopter up there and a climbing wall. So guess what? That's the one we put in our itinerary because that's what gets kids excited to get up there. So what excites them, whether it's bugs, little animals, critters, water, it's very different in terms of what gets them excited about the trails. That's been my experience with younger kids. Is it the same with older kids as well, RyAnn?
I think older kids, they like the destination. I found picking a destination for them, something to look forward to, like this is where we're going to go, we're going to see this, we're going to stop, we're going to have lunch. It's kind of like an itinerary. I think they like that. So with my older kids, some of our favorites like Comet Falls at Mount Rainier. They really loved Lake Serene. We hiked all the way up there. That was not the first hike to do postpartum with your fourth child.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's 6 weeks. I'm good to go, right? And they're like, let's go to Lake Serene.
I call it the Stairmaster hike.
Yes, that was the wrong hike. I couldn't walk after that for a little while.
Oh my gosh.
But they had a blast jumping off the rocks while I just kind of sat there with an infant going, what did I do?
Oh, and you were carrying the baby. Oh my God. No. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. For people who might be listening to this, yes, Lake Serene is not something to get started with your kids on. It's like 4 miles, something like 4 miles away, and about over 3,000 feet of elevation gain, tons of stairs. Older kids who are looking for a challenge, depending on where they are in their hiking or outdoors journey, it might be fun, but not something to get started with and not something to do with younger kids. But beautiful, beautiful hike. The lake is just so pretty around the year. It may not be accessible around all year round, but yeah, it's beautiful even when the lake is frozen and there's snow around when you can still access it. So it's a beautiful one. Yeah.
Bridal Veil Falls is right there, and that one can be kid friendly, and that was the destination for the day. And then they were like, oh, there's a lake. So okay.
Oh my gosh, did you not tell them what it takes to get to the lake? But yeah, your kids were older, so.
Yeah, they were older, and I thought, oh, I can do this. I've been like, we hike, that's what we do.
Yeah. I think one of the other good ones would be like Wallace Falls, because you have options to stop at the first fall or the second one, or then go all the way to the third one. So yeah, that's another great one. Yeah. It must be the internet.
Oh.
RyAnn, you're probably your video just froze because of the some of my favorite hikes still, RyAnn. Are you back now, RyAnn? There you go. You froze for a little bit, so I started sharing my favorite hikes.
Yeah, go turn it off because it's affecting me.
Is that your 5-year-old?
Yes, he turned his show on, but he likes to watch this adventure guy on YouTube, and I think that's probably what is affecting. So I was like, you have to turn it off now. You have to turn it off.
Adventure guy. I think we should share it with our audience. Who's the adventure guy that kids can watch on YouTube?
Oh, I don't even remember what the name of the show is. Samuel, what's the name of the adventure show? He doesn't remember either.
I remember.
What is it? I think it's the Adventure Fam. It's a dad and his 2 boys, and they actually live in Vancouver, Washington. Yeah, and they go on adventures around their neighborhood. He's taking them on some adventure to discover who DB Cooper really is. But at the end of every episode, they talk about respect and love and kind of that kind of stuff. So I'm okay with those ones.
That's amazing. I'm totally going to check out the Adventure Fam.
Yes.
Thanks, Samuel. And okay, so I think we can wrap it up with some extra considerations. It's hard to sometimes motivate kids to get outside, and even when you're on the trail. So one is even to get them motivated to come with you on an outdoor activity. Sometimes they're up for it, sometimes they aren't. So what's worked, even as you're planning to get outside and do like an activity outdoors with the kid, if they're not interested, how do you motivate them? And what if that happens when they're on the trail? Mid-trail, they're like, all right, I'm done. How do you tackle those situations? Or they just decide to throw a fit and the mood just changes. Something's happened, something's ticked them off. How do you handle those situations, RyAnn?
Yeah, I think so. For the first part, just to kind of get them excited to even go, we have always let them be involved in that process. So like, hey, we're going to go out. What type of a thing would you like to do today? Samuel's actually gotten less into like hiking and wants to go mountain biking a lot more, which is not my thing, but that's okay. We'll balance it. We'll go hiking once, then mountain biking another time or something. But yeah, just trying to get him involved, giving them a job like, hey, it's your job to make sure we get this, or it's your job to help me make lunch in the morning, those types of things. If we can, I mean, it's obviously been hard this year, but maybe to find another family to go with us. Yeah. Part of what I do with the Mountaineers is I lead a group, like I said, 2 to 5 year olds called the Mini Mountaineers. And so that's the group that Samuel is plugged into. So twice a month, it's some sort of outdoor hike or activity where he gets to see his friends. And so that is really exciting for him. He looks forward to those days. And then on the trail, keeping him excited, I am not above bribery at all. Gummy worms, M&Ms, Skittles, anything. A few times when we started going backpacking, there was the gummy ferry that would leave ferries along the way. And that was like, my husband would go at his normal pace to kind of like, it's hard to walk at a toddler's pace with a heavy pack on. Like you need to move. So he would go ahead and put gummies every so often. And then we'd finally catch up. And then it would be my turn to like walk at a normal pace. And I would put the gummies out. So he would have to find the gummies from the gummy ferry.
Cool.
Yeah. And then we sing a lot of songs, especially when Sam was little. Like I'm sure we annoyed everybody on the trail, but we sang like, I'm a little teapot and
on the bus.
Wheels on, yes, all the time. And if I'd put him on my back, like in the carrier, we'd sing I'm a little teapot, and then I'm like tipping him over, or I'd be a train and we'd make choo-choo noises. And
yeah.
So just whatever to get their mind off what we're actually doing, which is just like walking on dirt for a really long time.
Yes. Absolutely. You have to get creative, especially when they're younger. And yeah, definitely. And how about when they're older? I have no experience with that. In terms of when they're younger, same things, driving and having a friend always helps, because they're just keeping each other engaged and chatting away about, whatever they want to chat about, and you reach the destination before anybody realizes. So that always helps. It's not been easy, like you mentioned, during COVID. And I give him a task as well. And I kind of try to give him responsibility. He knows, he's already figured by now that my sense of direction is pretty bad. So his job is to help us navigate the trail.
Nice.
An eye out for the signs. So his job is to make sure Mama is not lost on the trail. So he does it really diligently. So
that's awesome.
Anything to give them the responsibility.
Yeah.
How it works. How do you motivate older kids, RyAnn? How about your older kids?
Older kids, the friends really helped, like when we had our family that we went with every week. And then for them, a big motivation was food. So like, I'm not a big soda person, but they loved soda. So I'd buy like the little cans of Dr. Pepper or whatever. So when we get where we're going for lunch, you can have a soda. Or we would stop like at the dollar store and get Red Vines and their favorite candy. And like, you can share these as we're going along. And then the reward after, again, food motivated. Like we'll go get burgers after, or for my girls, we'll stop at Starbucks and get Frappuccinos. Or food works for older kids. I think like that started working for like 10 and up, those types of things. And then I also think like, again, having them help in the process. And then my girls were really motivated by like what they got to wear. So like helping pick out like a cool color rain jacket or new leggings or something. It sounds so silly, but it's those little things that get them going.
So good to know. Yeah, I didn't realize, I wouldn't have imagined that food would work and bribery would work with older kids too. But it's good to know, and good to know that for girls, it's trail fashion.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much for sharing these absolute gems, I would say. Yeah, no, super helpful. I think we are just about on time in terms of the things we wanted to cover and the topics we wanted to cover. I don't see very many questions, but I'd also love to hear about what are your favorite backpacking sort of, or multi-day destinations, even if it's not backpacking. Where would you just like to, if you had to spend the weekend, given that there's a spring break coming up, what would be some of your favorite places to go away? And just given that it's again COVID, there is still an interstate travel restriction in place. Yeah. So within Washington, if you had to go spend like 2 or 3 days, where would you go?
One of my favorite places to backpack is, sorry. We're learning volume control.
It's working.
This is what happens when dad's at work and
you're doing great. If dad's at work and you've got a 5-year-old and you're still doing this chat, kudos to you. I've had, when dad's not around and I'm doing calls, I've had my kid literally on my shoulder when I'm doing calls. He won't leave me alone.
Yes, mom is always needed, even when she's not.
Especially when they're on a call, when they're doing work, and dad is out of bounds when he's on a call. Dad's on a call, but mom's on a call, it doesn't matter.
Right. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, one of my favorite places to go is the Ozette Triangle up on the Olympic Peninsula.
Sorry, which triangle, right?
The Ozette Triangle. It's out on the coast. You can make it like a total 9-mile triangle, but it's like 3 miles out to one campground. And then you can go 3 miles down the coast along the beach to another campground and then back out. But you could just go 3 miles out to a campground and then come back 3 miles. You do have to get a permit through the national park in Port Angeles. But that was Samuel's first backpack that he walked on, because it's mostly flat and a lot of like wooded boardwalk. It's a super great first backpack for kids. And then it's the beach, so even big kids like it.
Yeah.
That seems to be where we go a lot, the coast, even out. There's a great campground in Ocean Shores that then is close to Ocean Shores for all the things that they have there. You know, they have like the go-karts and horseback riding and all that kind of stuff. And then I absolutely love Mazama, is one of my favorite places to get away. So, and in the winter, they have cross-country skiing and fat biking. And then in the summer, biking and climbing and hiking and all of it.
We just got back from there. We spent the last weekend, it was my husband's birthday. We just got back from Mazama. But I noted down all the Olympic ones and the beach ones. Those sound amazing. I'm actually going to check those out. So thank you so much for getting those. For people who are new to the outdoors, now you have this wealth of knowledge of these awesome, amazing places to go with your kids. For somebody who's new or newer to the area as well, do you have some resources where they can go look up ideas or find options?
So my biggest resources, like we talked about, is the Washington Trails Association. That's been a big one. Yeah. Because you can even kid filter in backpack trips.
Oh, awesome. I didn't know that. We haven't done that yet.
Yep. So you can do that. And then like local resource magazines, Seattle's Child actually often has activities and local happenings that are going around. And then they'll talk about maybe some trails or active parks to take your kids to. So those are kind of some of the resources that I use.
That's
the most. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I noted down Seattle's Child as well, the local magazines. Once in a while, I see some stuff on Parent Map, but not all the time. But I'm going to look up the Seattle's Child as well and see. And I think I'm going to use this as an opportunity to plug our trips as well. So on our website, anybody who's interested can check out these weekend getaways. Most of our trips are kid-friendly and for young families. And these are personalized for whoever is going on these trips, and all the details are kind of thought through and taken into account as well. So you can find them on the Adventure Tripper website. With that, RyAnn, thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to ask Tiziana if you have any questions. Thank you so much for joining us. But yeah, even if you have questions later on, feel free to ping us on any of our social media channels on Facebook or on Instagram. We will be more than happy to get to the responses you're looking for. Thanks for joining in, RyAnn. It was a pleasure talking to you. And thank you so much again for sharing the wealth of knowledge that you have.
Thank you so much for having me. It was super fun.
All right, then. Have a lovely evening, and I look forward to connecting with you again sometime.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, Tiziana. Thanks for joining. I'll end the call now. RyAnn. Bye.
All right.